Hey guys, I'm gonna show you why most people are running the wrong tire pressure on their bicycle. So I'm gonna show you like what you should be running. So this depends also on your weight and on what kind of tire you're using. So I'm just using standard mountain bike tires on this bike here, and it also depends on how soft your front shocks are. So if you have like a very soft suspension on the front, that's usually a sign that you have like a low quality bike, is if it's too soft. So what they try to do is try to give you a lot of movement, but they made it too soft. So I had a bike like that. So you can only run 30 psi on something like that, because you don't want it soft, because it's gonna affect your handling. So for me, over 220 pounds, what I run is a 30 psi on the back, approximately 28 to 30 or 32, just depends. And on the front, approximately 20 to maybe 22, 24 for this bike, because the suspension on this bike is quite stiff. So it's just a cheap shock, and they made it quite stiff. So that's why I run a lower pressure on the front, so that the impact on my wrists, let's say, is going to be much less. It's going to be a much more comfortable ride. On the rear, the suspension, the shock in there, the spring doesn't really matter, because your weight is still going to be going down on that rear end. So you have to have a good enough pressure for the amount of weight. So like I said, I'm using 30 pounds approximately. And again, that depends also on the weight of your bike. So this bike is about 40 to 45 pounds that I'm showing here. So I was checking a bunch of these tires, and this is why a lot of people are running the wrong pressure. They're reading the sidewall, which is listing normally the maximum pressure and sometimes the minimum. So it'll say something like, 20, it'll say 40 to 65. Sometimes it'll say min, max, but most of the time it doesn't say that. It just says 40 to 65. So same as over here. These are just mountain bike tires right here. So at 40 to 65, let's say you have a 100 pound rider, like or 150 pound. This pressure is going to be way too high. You're going to have a really hard ride. That's why I'm running only 30 psi. I'm 220 pounds. If I run 34, 35 psi, it's going to be a very rough ride. All these tires here, 35 to 65. So that's a little more, makes sense. This is a mountain bike tire, because 35 sounds reasonable. So here's some smaller tire. Again, it's 40 to 65. And over here, the Kenda is saying 30 psi. That's 16 inch though, and 16 inch. So that's over here, these little tire from a jogger. And some I have over here. So they're giving you a more reasonable pressure, because they know a lighter rider is going to be on something small like that. So here's what's happening if you're running low or too high. So I'm going to show you here. So let's say the front wheel, you have 20 to 25. So unless you have a good stiff front suspension, it's not going to be good for you, because let's say your suspension is too soft. You're going to lose handling. You could actually lose control if your pressure is too low, because your shock is soft already. So you're going to get increased like wear on your tire, and you're going to get a lot more flat tires, because it's softer, easier to get penetrated. So here, loss of control. And what I do, I double up the rubbers that are going around the spokes under the inner tube. And don't use the worn out tires, because you're going to get flats like that. You need that rubber to protect your tube. So if you have too much psi, it's similar to a car. You don't want too much or too little. It's a fine balance. So you're going to get less traction, worse handling because it's going to be vibrating and jumping around. You're going to have a horrible ride and uneven wear. It's the same as a car. You got to have the proper air pressure. So like all these tires here, it's also dependent on what type of tire. So here we got just strictly mountain bike, more aggressive. Here we have a hybrid. So there's less air volume inside there. So you could need more air pressure on that. So it depends, like when you're riding your bike, how it feels. If it feels way too hard, lower the air pressure. So over here is another kind of like more of a hybrid kind of tire. So there's less air volume in there. So you could need more air pressure. Like this little jogger, it's a hybrid tire. It's saying you need 30 psi. So in this jogger, it's only going to be a baby. So they're really pushing that pressure. You don't need 30 psi to hold a baby stroller. So on this, I would say, see, they're saying 30 psi. I would put, you know, like even 15 psi, depending how much weight you're putting on these tires, because you don't want your trailer or whatever to be jumping around all over the place. Okay guys, so that's the way I set up my bike. Have a nice day. Thanks for watching.